All right. Good morning, everybody. It is Mike Shea. Morning, everybody. Is Mike Shea in Lakeland, Florida. I am here with my friend Rafael Lozano, and Rafael is a booming realtor here in Polk County, primarily in Lakeland. And you were born and raised here, right?
No, I was actually born in Texas, but I've been in Lakeland since '99.
Okay, so adopted son, right?
That's right.
So the reason I wanted Raf on here was part and parcel to give my buyers and sellers an understanding of something that's new in the 17 years I've been a business broker, and it's been the housing challenge of the last year. Now, unless you're living under a rock, and we don't deal in rocks as real estate people, everyone should be pretty well aware of the housing shortage and what's caused it. You could get a bunch of experts to give you some opinions, but the reality is, at least in Florida, it is a super tight market, right, Raf?
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
So what does that got to do with business brokerage? For the folks that I deal with, about half of them are expats coming into the United States, and they come from Canada, they come from Europe, they come from South America, Eastern Europe, all over the world. And their fixation really is upon the business problem. But when you're moving a family around the world, you got to have a place to live. For the longest time, it really wasn't a problem. And even during the pandemic, it somewhat wasn't a problem until consumer behavior kind of normed out and people were like, hey, we can travel and stay in vacation homes. And then the bookings rose. So we used to just stick people in vacation homes because we had a plethora of them. And with the pandemic, there was ready availability. Not so much anymore, because what's happened is people are moving to Florida at a record rate, both from the US and from overseas. And then add to it the inventory shortage, both in new and old homes. We got a problem. So, Raf, why don't you give me a little bit of a feel for, I know it's mostly Polk County that you deal with, but what we've seen in the housing on our left and our right, and then what we've seen in Orlando in terms of pricing and availability and the lack thereof.
Sure. And to kind of piggyback off what you said before, there was a plethora of vacation homes because plenty of investors kept all their properties because they were making good money. Things were looking great. Things were consistently booked. However, with the shortage, they know that, hey, shortage, that means I can sell my place for a higher value. So a lot of them started cashing out, and they were selling their properties left and right at the high price in those bigger markets like Orlando and Tampa. And now those shortages became even shorter. So to go to your point about the pricing, so I did a run on the market just since June, because even the first half of the year, things have drastically changed a lot. So since June till current, in the Tampa market, that's just a little bit cheaper than Orlando, not by much. An average size house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, the average price right now is about $350,000. That's just Tampa. Now, if you swing over to Orlando, the average size 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house is $360,000. So those are drastically up from where they were at even just a year ago.
I think a year ago, I pulled Tampa, it was 279, and Orlando was 325.
Yeah, so that, funny enough, kind of started balancing out because people saw that, hey, Tampa's a little more expensive. Let's check out at Orlando. So all the big markets switched over there. Hence, more properties were being sold at quicker rates, less shortages, and now it's balanced out. Now Orlando is the one that's more expensive because there's even more of a shortage over there.
So what's happening here? What's going on in Lakeland, Winter Haven?
Yeah, so the good thing with Lakeland is it's still a great place to invest in because it's still, look at the difference here. So a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Lakeland and the surrounding areas, you're looking at $273,000. So $273 from what Tampa was. Let's see, what was Tampa again here?
349.
Yeah, 349. So 273 to 349. That's a huge difference for the same house.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Lakeland is holding its value and it's still increasing. So right now it's still a great market to buy, because even though value is increasing, it's still a heck of a lot better than purchasing and investing in the Orlando and Tampa markets.
So, there's some self-interest here on this, and it's a challenge. So for the buyers of businesses, whether they're coming in from the north, from the United States, or they're coming in from overseas, there's always this temptation on a buyer to go to where the business is. And because they're just so new to the area, they can't see the tea leaves. Mm-hmm. So, I moved here 6 months ago to Lakeland, and I was in Orlando, Lake Nona 20 years ago, before Lake Nona got kooky. So to give people a feel, 20 years ago, I bought a 5-bedroom, 3-bath on a nature preserve for $225. 20 years ago. And where I lived in Lake Nona, people in Orlando said that's out there. It was 20 minutes from downtown to my home. It was out there. And no one's like, why the hell would you live out there? Like, it was the middle of nowhere. So context of distance and time is always a variable. So when you're a buyer coming in from overseas, I try and tell people, you got to pick where you're going to live, and it's okay to lead. How do you see where the growth is going to be? And I've got some impressions or some opinions about how you kind of forecast things. So I moved to Lakeland, one, because my wife worked here, but I believe that Polk County is going to boom. And there's been some recent news just in the last week that kind of validates some of that for me. But let me hear from you why you think Polk is going to, for the next 10 years, is going to kind of lift and grow.
Biggest reason is the interstate I-4 that connects Tampa all the way between left side of the state, all the way to the right side of the state, past Orlando. I-4 runs smack middle of the county, which is smack middle of Lakeland. So the biggest is the connection quickly to get to the interstate. So you're about 35, 40 minutes, if that, getting over west to Tampa, 45, 50 minutes getting east to Orlando. So number one is the convenience of how you can get a lot of business accomplished quickly just from jumping on the interstate. That's one of the reasons there. Two, we here in Lakeland, we actually have a private, had a private airport. There was just a small airport, Lakeland Linder Airport, nothing going on, nothing too big there. That in the last couple of years has changed to a commercial airport. So we have big names, FedEx, UPS, the biggest one, Amazon. So Amazon is 4, 5, 6, 7 airplanes a day coming in and out of that place. So it's booming. Why? Because it's so much cheaper to run it out of Lakeland than it is throughout Tampa and through Orlando. So those are two huge reasons right there.
So, let me put my old corporate hat on. 30, not 30 years, but 20 something years ago, I was in logistics. And there are some major, if you drive I-4 between Orlando and Tampa, you see these big distribution centers and trucking. And for the uneducated or the person who doesn't understand, let me back up. Everybody knows we got a supply chain issue, right? And for a majority of life, people just didn't know about, how the things got to their table or to their home. And now with Amazon, we're more familiar with the last, what we used to call last mile delivery. But sitting in Lakeland are some of the major distribution centers for food, for pharmaceuticals, for caskets. If you want to know how logistics works, you want to judge a good footprint, look where the casket companies are, because they literally have to get a coffin on short notice to somebody, and there's a reason it's in the middle of the state. But back when I did logistics, specifically in pharmaceuticals, Lakeland was identified because of its I-4 artery, its proximity to 75 and the turnpike, and its relative proximity to 95, because Florida is a weird logistics state. It's a very long state, and there's not a lot of multiple highways going north, south, east, west. So, the next thing I would tell buyers or sellers or people moving here is, if you want to see where the economy is going to grow, look where healthcare plants its footprint, in addition to Amazon. I mean, those people are super smart. They understand the logistics component, and the cost of doing business is cheaper here than it is in the 2 metroplexes. But if you want to see where the projected growth of a community is, look where the hospitals get planted. And the reason is hospitals just don't, hey, I want to open one up and get that approval. They have to get approval from the state. There's certificates of need, and they have to get a board of some kind to say, yeah, it's okay to place that there. Because when hospitals are businesses and run on an economy, if you drain one, there has to be enough forecasted demand to support the infrastructure. So I think Sunday it was announced that ORMC is Orlando Regional will be placing one of their, I forget the name of the group, but they're placing a hospital on the south side. And then yesterday, the CEO of Lakeland Regional announced they're opening up their medical school in forecast over the next 2 years, where they're going to be training doctors. So, I don't know the count. I think it's up to 200 doctors or thereabouts, that coming out of med school for their residency program. So there's got to be housing for that. And then every time you plant a major industry, there's support industries that float from that. So, you don't know, there's got to be linen companies, got to be food service companies, there's got to be, realtors and construction and, all the service companies to support, those major companies coming in and planting a footprint. So the face of Lakeland's going to change. And then I don't know if it was last week, I heard some stuff about high-speed rail east-west. I think it was in the paper on Sunday I could tell you, I did the commute to Orlando yesterday, and it does compress and become a nightmare right at Disney. But man, if you put a high-speed rail system in, I'd be on that thing every day, back and forth.
Right.
Park the car, grab an Uber, I'm done. I would not do, because it took me last night at rush hour about an hour and a half to get home from Orlando, just because of that Highway 27 Disney congestion. Once I get past that, I'm good. So, what I'm seeing with the buyers from Europe, and this is a whole nother discussion, is there's about $100,000 difference in cost of living between the two states, between the CapEx to buy the home and then get your footprint started. So, once they understand the geography and distance, Lakeland becomes an option for them. Don't you agree?
Yeah, 100%. And not only just the value of the home itself being so much more affordable or in a lesser bracket, that also equals that your property taxes are going to be lesser. So the overall property taxes, the value of the home, utilities, the connection to internet and all that, just overall, the cost of living is so drastically different than the surrounding markets.
Yeah. And if you're in a footprint where you make an investment for your family in the United States or in Florida, and you're there first, you organically just catch the wave. If everything you and I are seeing is going to happen, then that gives you a buffer and an ability to kind of just scale up and catch the growth. I mean, I bought a house in Lake Nona when no one was in Lake Nona, and Lake Nona's like the place. And my house sold in under 3 hours for literally $300 and something thousand more than I bought it for. It wasn't always over that, but if you're playing long-term equity and financial growth, you got to pick those places early and have the wherewithal to go, because if you go to the expensive place, it's going to cost you more. One thing I think people don't understand about Lakeland either is the work ethic's different. Employees stick longer. They just do. Why? Because at the present, there's not a lot of choice from an employment standpoint. Even in a world where people are complaining about staffing, the work ethic's different here, and people tend to stick around because of different culture in Polk County than it is in, say, Orlando Metro or Tampa Metro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Especially with Lakeland, what I love is we're a huge community where everybody's all about investing in the small to medium businesses. We want to help each other out. Everybody loves to shake hands, get to know each other, help you out in your community so we can all succeed together as well. So that's massive. It's huge. It's a big heartbeat in Lakeland is what I love mostly about this general area.
Yeah, everybody moving here, I found out that everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. It's an incredibly small community, and it doesn't. If you're a good person, you'll thrive because you do good things for good people, and it kind of reciprocates. And it takes time, but when you're looking at that dollar spend, and the other thing is that it's safer. Having young kids, it's moving from Orlando to here. I'm not afraid to let my 15-year-old go out, and drive the roads, or my 19-year-old drive the roads, or my son play in the streets around here with his neighbors, or just, hey, Dad, I'm going out, in the neighborhood. I can't say the same about that in my old neighborhood. It wasn't always like that, early days, but when you're primarily trying to raise your family, it's a different environment. And that's part of the process you have to think about. Sometimes people, at least in my world, they kind of only focus on the business. I'm like, you got to figure out where you're going to live, and you got to figure out where you're going to raise your family, because if that ain't right, the business stuff's not going to be right either.
100%.
So Raf, how do people get a hold of you?
Oh, so for me, a couple of different ways. The easiest way, everybody knows Google. So you can just go on Google and put Realtor Raf the third, or Realtor Rafael Lozano the third. Because you can get my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my website, my cell phone, my home office address. So just Realtor Rafael, R-A-F like in Frank, A-E-L, Lozano, L-O-Z like in zebra, A-N-O the third.
Thank you, man. And what's your phone number?
863-602-3222 is my direct cell. I've had that for like 15 years. I'm not changing it ever.
Right. So folks, if you're looking for a home, Raf's the guy. Ping him. I don't put people on here I don't trust. And he understands the business and also how to raise a family. He's generally a good human being and someone I trust with my kids. So with that, I will load this. Have a good day.